the moderator for today's panel, and I think the whole panel is virtually up here and joined us, maybe one more to come. But Mira El-Ghaziri is the Managing Director of Healthy Path. She is the moderator today. Mira, I'm going to hand over to you if you wouldn't mind coming up and speaking, having a few words and introduce your panel. Shukran.
Thank you, Kim, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure being here today at this conference, and I need to thank the organizing committee from the ARCC Journal for creating that platform to discuss and tackle One Health in that collaborative manner. And I'm equally thrilled to be discussing a very important topic today about how to bring synergy between the research, innovation, and policy when it comes to driving a healthier and more sustainable food. The angle that we're going to address human health is going to be beyond infectious disease. I know all the previous discussion, the focus was on zoonotic disease, but given that the One Health concept has been expanded to also address the obesogenic environment and how food system causes or can create obesity, so we're going to also tackle health or human health from that angle. So without further ado, I would like first to introduce to our session Dr. Melissa Fitzgerald. She's the Executive Dean of Agriculture at Al-Dayed University. So let's give her a big round of applause, please. Also next to her is Mr. Adrian Odger. He's the Chief Operating Officer at DE3PBio from the UAE, Biotech Manufacturing Company. And I would like to invite to the stage as well Dina Mungi. She's the Head of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability Associate Director at Nestle. And finally, I would like to also invite to the stage Dr. Nouf Khamis Al-Ali from the Ministry of Health and Prevention. Pleasure to have you all here. Just to set a bit the context, so when we look today at the UAE, we have a food system that creates alarming rates of health issues or obesity. 7 out of 10 struggle with overweight, and we know that overweight is associated with other chronic and non-communicable diseases. And it's projected that by 2026, the burden of healthcare costs will reach $180 billion, which is equivalent to $17,000 per capita. That's alarming. At the same time, we have also a food system in the UAE that creates an ecological footprint of the food that we eat that is quite also high, 3 times the world average. So in a way, we have a food system that's, that we need to fix from health perspective and human health, but we also need to fix from environmental perspective, and that's where One Health comes to place. And obviously, it's quite documented that improving our population's health and food overall, we cannot just depend on human choices, but we really need to work on fixing the system. And by system, I mean putting the right agri-food policies in place, but also looking at how can we reshape the food environment so that it really creates a win-win situation for all. And this is where also evidence-based policy making comes to place, because it's only when we know what are the challenges and local issues that we can reframe the topic and come up with the right policies and the right innovation. And for many years, as the region, we've been reliant a lot on global data to shift and lift policies. But the good thing is this is changing now. And today, during the session, we heard a lot about local research to look at what could be innovative crops that could be planted in the UAE that could be climate smart, but also salt tolerant, and how can that be integrated into the region. And so today it's all about how can we elevate further the research and the data to really inform policy so that it really supports human health, but also supports and inform innovation so that the food innovation is really there to scale. And for that, we have the perfect, again, mix of panelists, because we have basically a representation from the tripartite, from academia, from private sector food innovation, both the startup and multinational companies, and from the government, which is the Ministry of Health. And today, it's going to be all about discussing how can we turn research into policies to inform population health, but also innovation that can address these challenges. So I would like to start first with Dr. Noof from Ministry of Health. If you can just to set the scene as well, tell us a little bit more about the health ecosystem here. What are some of the key challenges you find in the UAE, and what are also the key priorities from Ministry of Health to address it? And is environmental health integrated within human health when looking into the strategies?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to be part of this important event. And I think it's really great to see people from... It's on.
Yeah.
Okay, I think... Okay, is it clear now? Okay. So I think, as I said, it's really important that we see the perspective and hear the perspectives from different, organizations, different entities, because at the end we are talking about one ecosystem. So it's really important that we integrate health, agriculture and other areas to make sure that we are really creating that health environment where people can live and survive. So when it comes, if I go back to your question, Mira, I think in the United Arab Emirates, I think we have made really great progress when it comes into setting a great health system with perfect preventive and curative services that really respond to the needs of the population and the emerging health issues that are coming here. So we can see that we have, insurance system, we have hospitals, primary health clinics that tackle and target the needs of all people residing in the United Arab Emirates. We also have a really a great vision toward the well-being of the community in the United Arab Emirates, which is really supported by the higher government in the United Arab Emirates, and they put the well-being of people residing in the United Arab Emirates in the heart of all the work that is happening, and that was very clear with the initiation of the well-being strategy and the health well-being strategy to make sure that efforts and work is done toward achieving that. But at the same time, we are still struggling when it comes to NCD. This is one of the major health concerns that we have. Diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, obesity are still major issues that we are facing here in the United Arab Emirates. So I think as a government, as directions, we are really putting a lot of efforts when it comes into targeting the root causes of those issues, things like nutrition, physical activity. All of these are at the core of the work that we are doing. In addition to that, and with the raising concerns regarding, air quality, environmental health-related issues, again, we do have a lot of work when it comes to that area, and we have had a lot of collaboration with other entities in the United Arab Emirates to make sure that we address the issues related to environment, health, and the health of a human into one plan. And I think this is a direction that we are working toward, and this is an integral part, within the work that we are doing. Even when we think about the nutrition strategy, I think this is one of the areas where we integrated the environment, and the sustainability issues to be part of the work that we are doing to make sure that we, as we are saving the health of people, we are saving also the environment health.
Thank you, Dr. Noof. And it's very inspiring to know that environmental health is integrated in the upcoming National Nutrition Strategy, and we're going to also talk about it shortly as well now. Focusing on, we've heard about the big focus and the still remaining challenge from health perspective is non-communicable disease and the key different nutrient deficiencies. So I want to go to you, Adrian. You lead a biotech manufacturing company that leverages AI to produce different functional ingredients. And I'm going to let you also introduce better your company and what exactly you do. But you work a lot on, producing the functional ingredients that support health. If you can tell us a little bit more, how do you work in the UAE, but also elsewhere, to really support the national health priorities of the government and to really address key deficiencies and really improving health overall?
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I think firstly, from a UAE perspective, 80% of food is imported at the moment. It's growing, so there's something we really need to.
I think there's an issue with the mic.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah, better.
Finally. Hey, we got it.
Well done.
Okay, yeah. We're testing and iterating as we go. So I think the UAE imports a lot of food, and there's a big opportunity for us to address that using biomanufacturing, using AI, using proprietary databases. But food security, when you think about that, it's just not calories, to the point before. It's about resilience and it's about nutrition. And if you look at many studies that have been done in Europe, in the Western world, there is hidden hunger, which is people are getting a lot of calories, but they're not getting nutrition. They're not getting the resilience that they need. And I think from a UAE perspective, how can we really drive things forward is bringing local production of micronutrients, nutrients and functional foods to help support the population. And the way we can do that is through technology. So for example, at Deep Bio, we combine proprietary databases of 150 million data points. We use AI to sift through those databases super quick, picking the right strains, the right candidates, the right underlying ingredients for formulation. Then we use biomanufacturing, precision fermentation, bioenzymatic transformation to take those ingredients and to enable them to meet the KPIs, the requirements of governments or of the private sector. And I think bringing technology to bear in the right way into the UAE can be a really significant step forward. For example, we could do things like postbiotics. We could do things like animal-free collagen. We could do micronutrients, bioactives, and so forth, all produced locally in the UAE. What we need is the right policy, the right infrastructure, and the right support and incentives to come together to allow us to really kind of drive that forward. And I think the UAE's got a unique opportunity where it can really take the lead, where I think there's an 18, 24-month, maybe 36-month opportunity for the UAE to take a leading role in this. You see what Singapore is doing, and I think recently Singapore pushed back the 30-30 goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's a real opportunity, and I think the UAE's got the willingness, it's got the vision. We just need to have that coordination to really drive things forward.
Absolutely. And based on your experience, because you work also, you operate globally as well, are there some case studies where you work very closely with the government that you see also could be implemented here or leveraged, where you really work on addressing specific challenges in the country?
Yeah, I think there's some interesting opportunities that sit out there. I think governments look at it from different points of view. So if you look at Colombia, they've just implemented a sugar and salt tax, direct tax to food. If you look at Mexico, it's got black label. So if your underlying ingredients don't meet certain government requirements, you have to have a black label. But underneath that, they're starting to drive together the key, I suppose, players. So looking at policy, looking at infrastructure, looking at education, and also looking at capital. And how do you bring those to bear in a systematic way to drive innovation, so you've got kind of bottom up, top down. So I think that kind of approach, dependent on the country, dependent on the factors, socio-economic factors, does make a difference. So I think it's up to the UAE to think about, I think, the right levers or the right balances to pull from those many levers to drive nutrition, to drive health outcomes.
Thank you, Adrian. Dina, we've heard from manufacturing startup perspective. I want to also hear from Nestle as a big multinational organization with a lot of R&D centers, big influence in shaping what everyone eats. I believe probably in each one of our households there must be some Nestle brand. So how are you also working with the government, to really ensure there's alignment in terms of your innovation, but aligned in terms of the public health priorities and national goals overall?
Thank you very much, Mira. Glad to be here. Glad to be with Dr. Noof, Melissa, and Adrian. I think it's before I start about Nestle, it's a fantastic company that you're running, and I'm very, very interested to learn more about it. And I think that's the power of SMEs and these forums where we can really gather. But so Nestle, I believe most of you people know our products. We are present in 188 countries. We have around 23 R&D centers. We employ more than 270,000 employees. So I feel as a multinational, all what we say is that we have a huge influence, but we also have big responsibility in the countries where we operate. In the UAE in particular, we have 4 factories and we have 3 offices. One of them is our head office based in Expo City. So we see the UAE as a big food hub. And we try as much as we can as a multinational to understand the market where we work in. And I feel this is where the UAE government really plays a big, big role. Because at the end of the day, most of the gaps that exist within the population, you'll have Dr. Noof maybe talk more about it. They understand what are the gaps, and based on these gaps, they do their nutritional and their health and wellness strategies. And this is where, as companies, we need to, and as Nestle, we're still learning this, we need to get outside of the mindset of from global to local, but to be from local to global. Because this is where the real innovation happens. And I'm very happy that you have this entire ecosystem here in this panel, because this is exactly what needs to happen when we're having any type of discussion that is relevant to developing a policy. And I feel this is exactly what the UAE government has been doing. And one example, if you allow me to elaborate, is the recent change in the excise tax law or the sugar tax law that the UAE has implemented. In the GCC, along with other countries, the UAE was one of the first countries to implement what we call a sugar tax or excise tax on sweetened sugar beverages. This happened around 5 years ago. And back then, as businesses, it was a very big cost on the business because it's a 50% tax on the retail price. So you can imagine, the business impact that it had. But behind that, there was the health of the consumer that the government was trying to really advocate for. At one point, and this is, I feel, where the public-private partnerships and dialogue really worked, there needed to be some type of incentive, not only to reduce the existence of these very high caloric and sugared beverages in the market, but also to incentivize the companies to take a different route, which is reformulation. And right now with the tiered tax approach, so basically the government has introduced it, inshallah it's going to be implemented next year, but it's a tiered tax. So the less sugar you have in your drink, the less tax you're going to be paying. And I feel this was a very smart move based on a lot of benchmarking that happened across the globe, where all of the companies right now are racing to get less tax. So they're reformulating, they're trying to decrease the sugar in their drinks, etc. And I feel this is the power of collaborating with the government that we have.
And this is really all about creating an incentivizing model where
exactly.
food manufacturers are encouraged to really go for what's right for the population. At the same time, the government is able to achieve its goal. Yeah. And I also like that you stress that now we're going from local to global. So it's about no longer just exporting our challenges to outside and let them deal with our solution. It's now more about we have all the resources, all the tools. How can we export knowledge to the outside? And that takes me to Dr. Melissa. Since we're talking about exporting knowledge and having the right research that fuel innovation and also that inform policy making on what do we need here particularly to move the needle. Obviously, as a Dean Executive of Al Daid University, if you can tell us a little bit more about the research priorities that you're focusing on in a nutshell in terms of improving One Health, population health, as well as environmental health, but also how are you, more importantly, bridging the gap between research, that is publication, to take it to the real-world application? Because we always see, and that's a big challenge in academia, not just in the region, but globally, a lot of the research ends up being publication, and that's it. So how to really take it to the next level that it's really concrete?
Thank you for that large question. And I'd also really like to extend my appreciation to the organisers for putting this panel together. Just before I answer your question, Myra, I've just been sitting listening to these three people around me, and I've been reflecting on what they've been saying and what an opportunity we're currently sitting in. Has anyone in the audience heard the expression of ultra-processed food? Yeah, so some of you have. Ultra-processed food is a term that's come from the nutrition area, not the food area, from the nutrition area, and ultra-processed food is marketed as the most unhealthy food you can eat. But I'm sitting here listening to really high-level processing. I'm sitting here listening to nutrition, and I'm sitting here listening to corporate responsibility. So I think what we have here is a way of thinking about highly processed food that's extremely nutritious, that's got full of functional ingredients, that has universities like us and other universities in the area who work in food science to try and bring the nutritionists together with the food scientists, because that's the problem of ultra-processed food. The nutritionists said it, the food scientists were against it. And so having a common shared space between nutritionists and food scientists to take a different way of looking at and a different definition of ultra-processed food that takes into account reformulation. One of the big problems about cutting sugar out of food is that sugar has a lot of functional properties in the way that the food is, in the storage of the food, the taste, the flavour, the viscosity, the preservatives. It's a big thing to reformulate food to remove sugar or to decrease sugar. And that's where research can come in, to do those reformulations, to work with companies who can do clever ingredient synthesis to bring together some of the other types of sweeteners that can help reformulate food without taking away those textural things, not the sensory so much, but the textural things about food. So that's where I think there's a great opportunity, and that's where I think we can think differently about things like ultra-processed food by being innovative about it and using the opportunities that we have around us. But if I briefly touch on your questions, the sort of research that we do at the University of Al Udeid, as many of you probably know, Sharjah, the Sheikh of Sharjah, has put in place a wheat farm, a dairy, a chicken farm, a goat farm, and a fruit and vegetable greenhouse growing facility. So a lot of our research is with those organisations in terms of salinity, drought tolerance, things like that, agricultural research. And then to your last question about publications. For academics, publications are very important, and they are our pathway to promotion. So publications are really important. One of the really good things about universities in this country, though, is that the universities here recognise collaboration with industry, and that's not well recognised in every country. And so having that recognition of collaboration with industry enables us to use industry collaboration as part of our promotion process. So something for us, something for industry, but having partnerships that are market-driven, that are needed in the market, and that also use some science, some novel research. They're the ingredients that will make research partnerships work, and by understanding what companies need and what academics need, and being able to work together to deliver to both of those areas, that is how you get successful industry-academic partnerships.
Yeah. And I mean, this is also one of the platforms where we have right now academia and private sector to really bridge the gap. And I guess this is the call to action, like how can we have more of this platform where both sectors are working together to understand both the needs, from academia to understand the needs of the private sector and where they need really research, and vice versa as well. And we're going to touch upon that also in more detail shortly. This takes me to the next part, which is all about how can we strengthen the tripartite collaboration. So we had a quick discussion about it now, and also about the importance of elevating evidence in everything we do and having the local research to fuel innovation. So Dr. Noof, we know that there is one of the most important research paper is about to be published, which is all about national dietary intake, what people eat. this might seem familiar to many countries that maybe you probably have it, but this is going to be the first time taking place in the UAE, and it's going to be the first time that's going to inform about where we struggle. And so what insight do you expect this study will help you achieve, and how do you ensure that this data is translated to research, to policy, but it's also translated and informing innovation, especially both SMEs and multinational organizations?
So I think we are really lucky that we are going to have the results of this study released soon. And for any intervention to be successful, it should really touch upon the needs of the population that it's serving. So without having this study, we won't be able really to understand, what is going on. If we want really to understand, the current practices of the people here in the UAE, what are the areas that we need to target within our intervention and policy, it's really important that we have data about our population, So I think with the release of the results of this study, we'll be able to understand better, the micro and macronutrients deficiencies that we have here in the UAE. We will be able to understand more about the practices that people have, the consumption patterns that they do have, and even the health issues that they are suffering from. And I think this is really good input for us to design the upcoming policies. We are talking about reformulation. If I don't know what people are consuming, what are the products that, contribute more to the high intake of sugar, salt, or fat, then I won't be able really to develop a program that is successful and can drive a change and, effect to the population. So I think the inputs that we are going to take is definitely going to be the base of many of the interventions. Maybe we have heard the questions, before from the companies, when are we going to start the reformulation, based on what you want to work on the reformulation. And we were postponing the project because we want to make sure that whatever we do is really built on a strong foundation. We have a good justification for that, and we want to make sure that we are driving a change based on that, something that we can really monitor, something that we can look into that. And I think in addition also to the National Nutrition Study, other studies, other programs that we are doing is really helping us to better, modify and improve the policies. Maybe Edina touched upon the taxation, and the change that is happening. This is based on the learnings that we have been, taking from the experiences. So as a government, this is one of the integral inputs that we take into consideration, the learnings from the policies. Nothing is really right, nothing is wrong. It's really about the learning that we can take, This is what makes things better, this is what makes things improved, and this is what really make a change that we as a government are looking for.
Yeah. So it's all about really strengthening the foundation through data and evidence.
And collaboration, of course, yeah. And this is something that we are doing constantly, through the work, the policies that we are doing. We are making sure that we have that, communication with the government entities, with the private entities, with the academia. So we are making sure that they are integral part of any policy development to make sure that, we tackle the issue from all aspects and make sure that we benefit from the expertise, the experiences of those involved in such project.
So talking about strengthening the foundation for evidence and collaboration, Dr. Melissa, so last year there was the initiation of the Food Knowledge Hub, which is all about making sure that there's a collaborative mechanism and platform where all the three sectors are sitting together and sharing the knowledge and really how to align research priorities towards healthy and secure food system and sustainable one. So I want you to please share more about, what is this Food Knowledge Hub, and what's the purpose?
Okay, so you can see on your screen a bit about the Food Knowledge Hub, and unfortunately it's far away for me to read. So, I know, but it's too far for me to read. So anyway, the Food Knowledge Hub is it's a hub that's made of industry collaborators and academic collaborators, and it is a platform where where academia and industry can collaborate. It creates a central knowledge backbone, and it's trying to bridge silos between government, industry and academia. It's also trying to accelerate innovation and to strengthen the UAE's role as a region for as a global food leader. It has 4 strategic frameworks, or it has a strategic framework of 4 streams. One is innovation and research and development collaboration. One is academic and workforce development. One is data and insights. And the 4th one is global partnerships and benchmarking. And just to show one thing, one activity that has happened between the academic and workforce development is at our university we are developing a food science program, and the food knowledge, the Knowledge Hub all got together to fill in a survey and provide all the information that we need to think about how we build our curriculum. And so that is a really powerful thing. So all the industries of the Food Knowledge Hub, plus a few other industries, have given us really, really useful and wonderful input on what we want our students to develop as their skills. They need to develop soft skills, leadership skills, transferable skills, and technical skills. And another thing that we have talked about with the Food Knowledge Hub is an idea, have I got this slide? No. An idea for the Food Knowledge Hub to be a central hub that for industry partnerships or industry internships for students, so that companies who have an internship availability, who want to sponsor a student, they sign up at the Knowledge Hub. Students who are looking for an internship from our university, from UAEU, from Sharjah University, from any university that's got students who want to do agricultural food internships, they come to the Food Knowledge Hub website, they find their internship, and then various of us will support that relationship. And so when you have a student intern with an industry supervisor and an academic supervisor, that's a neutral piece of ground where innovation ideas can be developed, where either something sparks from what the student is doing, or just conversations between the two lead to ideas of new possible research partnerships. And so that's an idea that we've been sort of, I'll say, kicking around a bit in the Knowledge Hub, and we're thinking about how we can implement that as a really strong activity of the Knowledge Hub.
And that's critical initiative, because at the end it's a matchmaking platform. It's basically understanding what are the market gaps, what are market needs, and then where does academia really want to invest their research and priorities. And again, the whole premise of that comes because there was a siloed approach. No one knows what's doing, and we always talk about these like 2 different worlds with 2 different languages, 2 different approaches. So it's really about synergizing communication between both and making sure there's proper understanding of the needs. So this, Dina, takes me to, again, we've seen the initiative from Dr. Melissa on the Food Knowledge Hub, and obviously as Nestle you're working with the whole ecosystem, including the SMEs. And back to the point about the importance of localizing the innovation, understanding how can we come up with local solution for the local gaps. How are you working with SMEs and the rest of the ecosystem to really work on localizing that topic and ensuring that you're addressing the challenges based on local solutions?
Sure, and I think I'm going to start by stating what I said in the previous response, which is I think global science really needs to meet the local realities and the local needs. So for Nestle, we're investing around 1.7 billion Swiss franc yearly only on food innovation, so making us one of the largest investors in food science in general, with 23 R&D centers. So I think at this point it's pretty clear that if we do not ride the train early on, we're going to be missing so much, when it comes to innovation. So for instance, how can we use AI, like Adrian here is sitting and saying fantastic, business solutions that for me, honestly, seeing it here in the UAE, it's very inspirational. And I feel this is where the importance of collaboration lays. This is the first time as Nestle, and I feel it was a lessons learned, where we're like, okay, SMEs here are very, very advanced. They're more agile than us as a multinational, which we are at the end of the day, like a total institution, a dinosaur. And you have SMEs that are more agile, that are faster, that create solutions that might be way out of the blue, but at the end of the day, they're thinking 10 years, 20 years ahead of us. You have academia here that have a lot of knowledge, local students that can come up with so many solutions, government that is working on a national strategy. So I feel there is a lot of lessons learned and understanding how an ecosystem can function in the health space, in the food security space, in the sustainability space, whatever it is, it's very, very valid. So these ecosystems in the UAE are starting to be built. You have the UAE food cluster, you have different associations, you have a lot of roundtables that happen with the government that include this. So I feel just the penetration of all of these stakeholders together are very important. And again, I feel it's a very big lessons learned for us to not include SMEs and to not include local academia into the ecosystem. And we're catching up on this trend right now, I feel, in the UAE, and we're starting to understand, oh, it's not only a consultant that comes from Germany that's going to get the work done, it's actually the local. In order for you to really have the data to understand the gaps, you need to have the entire ecosystem with you. So
it's inspiring to, again, to see that you're working very closely with SMEs now, and there's a recognition of that. And this takes me, Adrian, again, as you've heard now from, big multinational organization on the power of the R&D and local innovation. I want to hear from you, what do you think are the true enablers for you to scale your business and really make sure that, you're able to thrive in such an ecosystem where there's a mix of.
Thank you. I think from our point of view, there's three key areas, because I think the willingness, the capital, the vision is there. I believe around facilities and infrastructure. I believe around talent and regulatory. But when I talk about regulatory, I talk about moving into kind of the novel ingredient space and how the UA can take a leadership role. So in terms of facilities and infrastructure, as you know, biomanufacturing, biotechnology is very expensive, very capital intensive. And I think what we have in the UAE is the beginning of the pilot labs that allow startups to prototype. But what we need is facilities along the value chain so that startups, academia, and corporates can collaborate and can innovate together without those barriers of entry, so we lower barriers of entry. Second, in terms of regulatory pathways, and this is something that most countries are still dealing with, even the FDA. We're doing something in the FDA around DNA identical human breast milk fat, and the FDA still doesn't have a clear process of how to think about a novel pathway. So I think from a UAE perspective, again, with the collaboration, with the kind of joined up government, I think there's an opportunity to look at those novel pathways, having a clear process for SMEs, for startups, for academia, to be able to come up with IP and then look to commercialise that IP. So, for example, regulatory sandboxes could be used and other kind of ideas in terms of how do we become much more agile and iterate. And then thirdly, which is very interesting to your point and on there, is skills. So I think we need more talent, so that could be in precision fermentation, molecular biology. So I think it's really interesting the point that you made, and what you're looking to do is around identifying skill gaps and trying to fill those, because as we drive facilities, we need people to operate those facilities to drive scale.
And I mean, back on the novel pathway, I guess your point here is sometimes you as innovation, you're quite agile and faster than the policy framework, and like how to create a balance between your pace and the pace of driving policies and regulations.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, and this is an interesting point I was thinking about, because if you look at, say, for example, grants, probably 3 to 5 years. You look at policy, it's multi-year. You look at, say, commercialisation is probably 18 months. So there is that kind of how do we think about an ecosystem and how do we drive incentives and drive timings to drive collaboration. You know, I think that's something most countries haven't even got close to kind of figuring out, because where we come from is we love to innovate, we love to be innovative, but we must also be able to drive value and drive commercial outcomes as well. So I think it's a really fine balance to be innovative, but also be able to drive commercialization, commercial outcomes, go to market quickly, show value, and then iterate and innovate.
Yeah, absolutely. This takes me to the last part, theme of the session, which is all about shared accountability and joint action for outcome. Obviously, here we're talking about cross-sectoral collaboration, inter-sectoral collaboration, and it's key to really drive accountability. And while today we talk about human health and we think that it falls under the health sector, but actually it's much broader than that. All key sectors work together, and that's why, again, when it comes to One Health, it's really the accountability of all sectors together and industries. And a critical question usually for policymakers is always about, you know, how to create a balance between a voluntary approach and mandatory approach, and what's really the right mix to drive meaningful impact. So here I want to go back to, you know, something that we've discussed very slightly. How can we move again in a systematic manner from siloed initiative to shared accountability, where all of the three sectors are co-responsible for measurable outcome when it comes to driving healthy and secure food system?
Well, I can start. I think that with having clear direction, this is one of the main things that we need to have, and this is something that I think that we are lucky with in the United Arab Emirates, because we have a clear vision from the government on where we want to go and what we want to achieve. And one of the important also, let's say, or successful factors for that is the collaboration. And I think this is something that we are doing really well here in the United Arab Emirates. Most of these strategies, and especially the national strategies, consulted with all the entities, because as you said, it's not the work of the ministry, for example, it's the work of different entities. And this is something that we always do with any strategy at the level of the country. There is a consultation that is happening with all the entities, and also a consultation with those who will be part of the implementation part. And this is something that we do all the time to make sure that we do tackle the issue from different angles. We do take into consideration the perceptions, the concerns of other parties who will be part of the success of such initiatives. And I think to make sure also that we really succeed in that, we need to make sure that we have the data that will drive the policy and the regulation that we want to go in. We need to have very good, clear monitoring system to make sure that, yes, we are monitoring the progress, we are doing the changes needed when it's needed, to make sure that the whole system is going smoothly and we are achieving the results that we are looking for.
Thank you, Dr. Nouf. Dina, what
Thank
would
you.
be for you how to break the siloed approach?
I think Dr. Nouf already summarized it pretty well. Public health is everyone's business at the end of the day. It's not only government, it's not only food companies, you have SMEs, you have academia, etc. And if I have to summarizing it to 3 building blocks, you have, again, this is reiterating all what Dr. Nouf mentioned, common baselines. What is the data? How are we building any type of, from a private sector perspective, for instance, my reformulation needs to be based on the local need of the population where I operate, clear metrics. How am I measuring this progress? And at the end of the day, also transparency and reporting of these metrics at the end of the day in order for you to have the sustainable progress that you'll need to see and visualize 10 years ahead.
Yeah. Dr. Melissa?
I agree with what Dina and what Nouf have said, but I would also say that one of the ways to do this is to have large multidisciplinary research projects. And if we had a multidisciplinary research project between SMEs, large food companies, academics in agriculture and food, policymakers and nutritionists, I think we could create something here that would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so I ought to think about this one. No, but I think from that point of view, I think very important point, skin in the game. Everyone needs to have skin in the game to really make it happen. A MOU or a LOI, which is great, but it's not skin in the game. Skin in the game is capital, it's money, it's really going in, all in. And I think the other side is education. So education of the population, which is key, because you can create the most innovative, nutritious food and ingredients, but if there's not underlying education of the population, you're never going to drive demand, and that drive has to be kind of double-sided. So I think innovation on one side, but education on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I want to summarize, what would be your recommendation is, obviously I want to start with having a multidisciplinary research where you have the different stakeholders on board, because as Dr. Noop mentioned, human health is the responsibility of all, and same as environmental health. So this is going to be critical to really drive shared accountability, but of course having as well, the right education where there's like a consumer pull as well, and not just relying on the upstream factors to make this happen. So how to create a balance between both, and of course the collaboration is critical. With that, I would like to leave the floor if there are any questions from the audience.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello. I'm Nabil, and I'm the co-founder of Credia. We specialize in breeding locusts, and I'm based in Morocco. First of all, thank you very much and honored. I wanted to touch on the protein supply chain. Now, ever since the novel food law was put in place, it introduced 3 insects into the global food industry: crickets, mealworms, and locusts. However, for the Muslims worldwide, especially here in the Gulf, the only insect that you could address would be the locust, as it is the only insect that is halal and kosher. Regarding that, we're leveraging an IP that was developed within a university. However, the interactions maybe with the likes of Nestle post this novel food law, it was a little bit iffy because we were put just as insect protein, and many funds were leveraged, but the Europeans are not ready yet to eat insects. However, here in the Gulf, we already eat locusts, and it's considered a delicacy. What is being done here in the Gulf? I mean, you said to build skin in the game. These are long flights for me to come all the way here to the Gulf, but I feel like my project a little bit makes more sense here. Is there anything being done regarding the protein supply chain and locust and the novel food? Thank you.
Maybe Adrian would like to take this question.
Thank you very much. In terms of locust as a use case, that's a little bit out of our scope, but in terms of protein, we are very much looking at protein in terms of bioengineering and biomanufacturing. So how do you take and enhance protein? How do you develop more novel proteins that are economically viable, that are very quick to market? But I think then it comes down to, again, what we talked about is collaboration around the value chain and consumer education. So I think from a product point of view, what we've had to do as a startup is we were very, very novel, very, very innovative. We then had to kind of learn how to play within the ecosystem, how to adapt, how to evolve our ingredients and our products so they're very commercially viable, very quick go-to-market, met the KPIs, and we could kind of play that game. So I think it's about adaptability. It's about kind of looking at how do you drive early value and quick value, and how do you drive go-to-market. So it's about how do you maybe evolve your product and your offering based on certain local market dynamics and the ecosystem that you work within to try and get that proof of sale or that user market fit, because that means everything. Because when someone's willing to pay $1 for your product, that changes the game in terms of how you're perceived from a corporate point of view, in terms of how your shareholders look at you and so forth. So we've had to do, I mean, the famous word is pivoting, but we've had to do a lot of adapting over 5 years to try and find a place where we can kind of find that sweet spot, but we're still adapting. You know, every week, every new brief, every new client, we're kind of adapting our process. Does that help?
Thank you. Any final question? Yes.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting session, learning a lot. I just go ahead with the last question. Novel foods are coming to meet out the demand, and it has been said by 2050 we won't have enough food. So in that line only the genetic engineered meat, cultured meat, they are in pipeline now that in times to come they will be on our table. What you consider that how they are going to solve, or there will be some ethical issues in that? Cultured meat or engineered meat? Whatever the advantage you want, they can engineer it.
Yeah, I think in terms of how we look at that, I think it goes back to collaboration, it goes back to consumer demand and consumer education. If you looked at the Impossibles and so forth of the world, they've had a really tough run over the last few years, partly because, and I think then it comes back to taste, it comes back to texture, and it comes back to, does it address consumers' KPIs, what they want to eat, what they want to taste. So I think in terms of the food itself, we need to look at how do you use technology to create innovative foods that we can produce through biomanufacturing and bioengineering, how we can create ecosystems where we have, for example, farms by the side of fermentation plants, but also when we think about formulation, it has to be, number one, commercially viable for the consumer. What we've seen the world round is when something's too expensive, people just will not buy it. So number one, it's got to be commercially viable. Number two, it needs to meet the benchmarks, the KPIs and acceptance criteria for the local population. Again, taste and texture is key, and if that's not there, the local population just will not pick it up. And I think the third side of things is in terms of education. Again, this is a big leap for a lot of consumers, especially the mass market, to take. So that real deep consumer engagement, education, and fostering collaboration is going to be really, really important, and probably double, triple what we need to do now to drive acceptance from the consumers to actually try something different. And then when they try it, when it tastes good, when it's a good cost, when it has the texture and the price point that makes sense for them, then you're going to see that real tipping point, I believe. So I think we've got a long way to go, and I think we've talked about here in terms of the collaboration that's needed, in terms of how we have to work very collaboratively, and I think that's kind of where we need to kind of see.
There's a long way to go, but I just want to say that this topic also is really prioritized. 2 weeks ago in Abu Dhabi, there was a big conference, Global Food Week, and there was a conference dedicated for alternative protein, especially cultivated and precision fermentation, driven by ADO, Abu Dhabi Investment Office. So it seems there is quite a lot of momentum happening in that space, and there is quite recognition that alternative protein should be part of the food security agenda beyond just the livestock sector. With that, I would like to thank all my panelists for your contribution and insight. If I want to summarize, what has been discussed throughout, again, collaboration is critical across the three sectors: academia, policymakers, and innovation, to drive the right innovation and policy for One Health. There was some recommendation on how to strengthen that, what could be like having multi-stakeholder research work stream, but also one of the initiatives is the Food Knowledge Hub, which could be also the right platform to bring all the ecosystem together to really align research priorities. And as emphasized now, it's all about going from local to global. So it's like the UAE is really has all the tools to make it happen and to export knowledge. So thank you all my panelists, and thank you for your attendance.